Hi everyone, I'm going to show you how to knit from start to finish. I've got a ball of wool, 4mm needles and a pair of scissors. So you want to start by finding the end of the wool and make a little slip knot. I do it with my fingers. I twist it over and then pull one end through. Like that, and then I put it on my left needle, and you want to pull it tight but not too tight. And then you get your right needle and you insert your right needle into the loop from the left hand side at the front and push it to the back. Now make sure when you start you don't use this little tail, you use what's called the working yarn, which is coming from the ball. Now there's different ways you can hold this in your right hand. I like to twist it around a couple of fingers and then use my pointer finger to do the loops. So hold the two needles with your left hand and then wrap the working yarn around your right hand. And you want to do a loop around the back needle, so you go underneath the back needle and then over. So you're back where you started. And then careful not to lose this loop that you've just made. Push the right needle back towards the opening of the loop and then twist it around so that you catch that loop when you bring it back through. I'll do that again. So I'll do my loop and then bring the right needle back, and that loop that you've just made, pull it through. Now you want to actually put that new loop onto the left hand needle like that. You can use your fingers or you can use the needle. This is called casting on, so this is starting the stitches of your project on your left hand needle. And this is probably the best way to learn. There's lots of different ways to learn to cast on, but this is the best way. Let's do it again. Insert on the left hand side from the front through to the back. Do a loop and then pull the loop back through. Stretch it out a little bit and place the loop onto your left hand needle. And then you want to pull it tight, but not too tight, otherwise you won't be able to get the needle back in. So you repeat that process for the amount of stitches you need for your project. So if it says cast on 30, you do 30 of these, and the first little slip knot counts as one stitch. So at the moment I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches on my left hand needle, and I'm going to cast on 20. Okay, so I have 20 stitches cast onto my left hand needle. This is what the front will look like, and the back looks slightly different, as you can see. Now I'm going to start knitting. And it's very similar to the cast on method that we just did. There's just one fundamental difference. So we're going to insert our needle on the left hand side from the front through to the back like we did before. Do a loop like we did before from the back and then coming back over. Pull the loop through But this time, instead of pulling this out and putting it on the needle, keep it the way it is, and then just push this stitch above the right hand needle, or to the right hand side of the right hand needle, off the left hand needle. I'll do it again. Insert your right hand needle into the next stitch on the left hand needle, from the left side, from the front through to the back. Do a loop, pull that loop back through, and then push the top stitch off the left hand needle. And that's the way you knit a stitch. Sometimes you'll need to push these stitches back up the needle as this part gets quite tight. Just be careful not to drop one of these off. Keep going to the end of the row. And when you get to the last stitch, you do exactly the same thing. And push it off. Now all of your stitches are on your right hand needle. So all you do is turn it so that it becomes your left hand needle. Take your right hand needle again, and you do exactly the same process. Make sure you don't use this tail, use your working yarn that's coming from the wool, the ball. And you'll keep doing that for as many rows as you need to. This is what it'll look like after you've done a few rows. This is the front side, and this is the back. Here's my little sample that I've knitted. I'm now going to show you how to cast off, which is finishing the work. Insert and knit a stitch. Knit one more stitch. Now this stitch at the back, or at the right hand side, needs to come over the top of this stitch and off the needle. You could do it with your fingers. It's a bit awkward with this size needle though. Or you could use your left hand needle to catch the stitch, and holding this quite firm so it doesn't fall off, pull that stitch over the other one. Just be really careful you don't push this one off as well. Now you have one stitch on your right hand needle. Knit another one, so now you have two, and then pull the back stitch, whoops, over the top of the other stitch and off the needle. Go slow, but don't pull it too tight, otherwise you will end up with a finished work that looks like this. Keep going like that until you reach the end. When there are two on the needle, you pull the back one over the other one and off the needle. If you have a crochet hook, I find it much easier than using a needle. I'll show you how. I'm nearly at the end. So I do knit the last stitch. Pull it through, and then cut the yarn pull it through that last stitch. Now see how this is not a flat rectangle? That's because my cast off is a little bit too tight. So I probably should have used a larger crochet hook so that it wouldn't sort of curl in like that. And casting off is not flexible at all. This is flexible, this section of the knitting, and you can do cast on methods that are very, very stretchy, even stretchier than that. But my cast off has almost no give whatsoever. But that's it. That's how you knit, start to finish. I want to show you what to do if you make a mistake. Say for example, you're partway through a row and you drop a stitch. It'll start to undo pretty quickly. So you want to try and catch one of these little loops that's starting to unravel. And then you want to feed this thread, which is supposed to be in that loop, back through it. So you can put it back on the needle and then take this stitch over the top with your other needle. In fact, I've just done that wrong, because see how this loop is at the front of this stitch, but the loop I've just done actually goes to the back? That means I need to do it the other way around. I need to put the thread on and then the loop, and bring the stitch over the thread. And I've actually split the wool there as well, which won't mean it will unravel, it'll just look a little bit weird. And normally you would insert into the left side, but this stitch is angled a bit weird because of the way I've threaded it back through. So I'm actually going to do it on that side. Don't worry too much about that fancy stuff. You just need to make sure you pick up a drop stitch again. So if you drop it straight away, just put it straight back on the needle, and if it starts to unravel, try and thread the other threads back through it that should be in there. And then just keep going. If at any point you want to undo something, if you want to undo the whole thing, just take the needles out and pull the thread and it will all come undone. Even the slip knot that you started with will come undone. But if you want to undo just a few stitches, what you do is you insert the left-hand needle into the stitch below the one you just knitted. So you don't insert it into this loop on the needle, you insert it into the loop underneath that one. You're basically reversing what you just did. You're putting it back on, and then you can slip your right hand needle out of that loop and it undoes the stitch. I'll do that again. Insert the needle into the loop underneath the stitch and pull off the loop. And then you can just knit them again as normal. Another common mistake that can happen is you can insert your needle and do your loop, but then forget to push this stitch off. So you've inserted your needle, you've done your loop, and you might pull your left hand needle out and then just keep on going. And what happens is you've actually added an extra loop there that shouldn't be there. If you notice that you've done that, you can just undo up until that point and you'll see the loop, and you can just undo that. Now this stitch hasn't actually been knitted because this yarn is not poking out of it, so you just need to put it back on the other side and then just knit as normal. But I'll show you what happens if you come across that mistake on the next row after you've done it. Okay, so there's the mistake. Keep going. So I'm on the next row now and I'm coming up to the mistake. Here's a normal stitch. I can tell it's normal because there's a loop in front of it. Now I see this. Okay, so what's happened is this is the normal stitch here, but it hasn't been knitted. This is the thread that should be going through that stitch. I can take that off and nothing will unravel. See how this stitch is sitting here, but this should actually be fed through there. So let's try and do it. I'm going to insert my right hand stitch from the back, pick up this thread and bring it through that stitch that should have been knitted. It still isn't knitted in this row. I'm going to put it back on my left hand needle and keep going, and the mistake is fixed. A similar thing could happen if instead of inserting your right hand needle just through the loop on the needle, you accidentally insert it through the stitch and the stitch below it. Okay. I won't show you how to undo that one, but just beware so that you can go nice and slowly. And the more you knit, the more you will know what things are supposed to look like and how to fix them. See what's happened here? There should just be 2 stitches, but I've split the wool. I've actually split the wool, and this little strand looks like it belongs with the stitch below. So I might just knit this part of the stitch and drop that. Yes, because that little strand belongs with the stitch below. And hopefully that'll pull back into shape and look normal. That's a mistake there, where a stitch hasn't been knitted, it's been missed and picked up later, so it's not going to unravel. It's just got this thread hanging out.